Birdlife Cyprus. Founded in 2003, Birdlife is one of the most active NGOs, non-profit nature conservation organizations in Cyprus. Birdlife has been running projects to promote the conservation status of selected bird species and for the protection of nature sites in Cyprus, targeting the preservation of Cyprus' biodiversity.
Birdlife Cyprus started from small beginnings back in 2003, having just one member of staff. But today, 20 years later, we've grown and evolved. We've in fact become one of the largest and most active conservation organizations in Cyprus, having 16 members of staff working full-time. We are guided by science and we work to protect wild birds, their habitats and wider biodiversity here in Cyprus through various actions, through policy and advocacy, through education and awareness raising, to not only inspire people about the natural world around them, but to also inform them about local conservation issues and how they can become involved and support us in our work. And we also deliver on-the-ground conservation work through various projects on specific sites or species. Of course, we are not alone in this fight. Birdlife Cyprus is the national partner of Birdlife International, a global network of conservation organizations. Of course, we are not alone in this fight. Birdlife Cyprus is part of a bigger global network of conservation organizations called Birdlife International. There are over 115 national partners all over the world, working locally to apply conservation actions, adopting a unique local to global approach to address the various conservation issues related to birds and their habitats.
My name is Christy Alexandrou. I'm the Education Officer at Birdlife Cyprus. My role is to organize and deliver educational activities about birds and nature. Our aim is to educate and raise awareness among young and old about the natural world, about threats that birds are facing. So we're trying to bring people outside in nature, in outdoor settings, in places that are important for birds in order for them to, to be at nature and see and admire birds with their own eyes. We are organizing a lot of events in wetlands for families as well. They get the chance to see birds through binoculars and telescopes. And they also make nest boxes and bird feeders for birds that live around them. So our aim is also to empower them, to show them ways, things they can do at home or at the school to help birds. An important part of our education actions is our presence at schools. We design educational activities and programs for schools. Again, our aim is to cultivate active citizens who care and act for the sake of birds. Our approach is to get them close to birds and nature through head, hands and heart. So our activities include observation of birds, listening of birds, hands-on activities like making bird baths and bird boxes that they would place in a schoolyard, so they actually get to help birds that live around them. We also design and produce a lot of informational and educational material like board games, floor games, bird guides, posters that we give to children after our school visits so that they can still have the chance to learn more about birds.
Hi, I'm Martin Helliker and I'm the director of the Birdlife Cyprus office here outside Nicosia. One of the areas we'd really like to see some changes in terms of the management of the countryside, the management of our ecosystems, is the whole sector of agriculture. Agriculture including grazing as well as cultivation. So if you look at the land surface in Cyprus, most of it is actually managed not by land managers, not by nature reserve managers, but by farmers. So if we can work with farmers as environmentalists, as environmental organizations, then there's a lot that can be achieved. The way farming and grazing are carried out today are often quite detrimental to the environment. You would basically call them over-farming or overgrazing. But there are solutions that allow for far more sustainable farming, and these solutions can really offer for biodiversity, not just birds, but across the board. We know if we look at the European Union as a whole, that the last few decades, since 1980, have been decades of absolute disaster for farmland ecosystems. Birds, not only birds, but birds are some of the best studied organisms in farmland ecosystems, and we know there's been a decline in farmland birds, so birds that rely on agricultural ecosystems, by over 60% since 1980. So we're talking about ecosystem collapse on a grand scale. So the BirdLife approach is that we need to take a couple of steps back and look again at how we do farming. And I should stress from the outset that we have to work with farmers. So, for example, we need to reduce pesticides. We need to reduce the chemical inputs into farming. But you can't ask farmers to change that from one day to the next. So subsidies, and the EU already pours a large proportion of taxpayers' money into agricultural subsidies. These need to be changed radically. So they're not given for business as usual chemical farming, but rather for a transition and to support that transition. Because if you move away from chemicals, you have to move to a knowledge-based system. There are ways of working with nature to do, but it's not as simple as the chemical solution. So the vision going forward is to work with farmers. It doesn't have to be going all the way to organic. Organic is fantastic, but it doesn't have to be going all that way. There are halfway houses, integrated farming, for example, that can make a tremendous difference for farmland ecosystems. So that's our vision, and that's what we try to do through projects and through working with relevant interest groups.
Okay, so the project Live with Vulture started in 2019 and will finish in 2024. It's an EU-funded project funded by the LIFE program of the European Union. It's implemented by Birdlife Cyprus, the Game and Fauna Service, the Vulture Conservation Foundation and Terra Cybria. What we aim to do with this project is to halt the extinction of the griffon population in Cyprus and to help the population thrive and make it more sustainable in the future. And the way we are trying to achieve this is mainly through minimizing the use of poison baits in the countryside, which is the main driver of extinction of the species in Cyprus at the moment. And we try to do this by removing poison baits from the countryside. We're operating for the first time in Cyprus 2 anti-poison dog units that are run under the Game and Fauna Service. And at the same time, we're trying to increase the capacity of competent authorities and stakeholders in order to allow them to manage poisoning incidents and at the same time to increase the efforts put in investigation of these wildlife crimes. So we're working with the Cyprus Police, with the Game and Fauna Service, with the veterinary services, with the State General Lab to properly investigate poison bait use cases in order to find the culprits and enforce the law. At the same time, a big part of this effort is to raise awareness and inform and educate people from the younger ages, from classrooms, to livestock breeders, to farmers, to hunters, who are sometimes the users of poison baits, but also sometimes there are those who are impacted as well from the extensive use of poison baits in Cyprus. We're also trying to reduce the mortality events to the population, so we're working with the Cyprus Electricity Authority in order to make the overhead power lines more visible to vultures by marking them so vultures can see them in order to reduce collision risks. So in this way we're trying to reduce losses to the population. At the same time, in collaboration with the Vulture Conservation Foundation, we're trying to boost the population, and this is done by restocking. So we're bringing birds from Spain. Spain has a wonderful example of years and years of conservation. So we're bringing birds and releasing them in the wild in Cyprus in order to help the population increase. But at the same time, it's very important that we reduce mortality events.
My name is Vasiliki. I am the Nature Policy Officer at Birdlife Cyprus. I've been involved with this organization since the very beginning of my career, since fresh out of university. And one of the first tasks I was given was to update the inventory that Birdlife Cyprus had of the most important areas for birds on the island, because we can see birds everywhere from our coast to the peak of our mountains, but important species gather in very significant numbers in specific areas. And through this updating, we created the most comprehensive list of areas that should be protected for birds on the island. And today, the areas under the effective control of the Republic of Cyprus, 30% of the land is under protection under the Natura 2000 site, and the work that we did had a massive role into making sure that this happened. So this has been also personally a moment in my career where I see the effect that civil society such as our organization has in protecting biodiversity, and this is something that we continue on by trying to make sure that this protection is not only on paper, but actually the areas are protected and that they enjoy appropriate management.